I will shortly explain the initial idea because maybe it was not translated exactly. So in the meeting of our Lithuanian leaders, we were speaking about, we found that we have a great need to start to care of devotees, and we found that there is someone who is already doing official and someone who is doing it natural or some has inclination to do this, but we have no any training and no qualification for that. And we found that we need to do some kind of lectures, meetings with devotees who has knowledge about this. And we found that the summer festival is coming, so we decided first ask your help in this regard. Also, we have ideas to invite some others, other devotees who has experience in this field to train, to teach how to take care of devotees.
Yeah, that's not what's going. That's not this though, right?
It's.
Yeah, training and teaching requires an organized.
Yeah, training, teaching, or at least some
It's not. It doesn't take place in a. It doesn't take place in a 1 hour meeting.
Yes, of course. But at least it's something you can start. So, and the idea that we sent all leaders that in their field of activity they found someone who is already doing some devotee care or have inclination and invite them. So it was not idea 5 or 6 people, it was idea from all leaders, some they invite some people. So my idea it was this much people,
Okay.
they all gonna understand 6 people to come. So now we have these meetings and devotees have some questions and maybe we have some message about this also, about importance and
Message is already on the video of the interview, and that's my message.
So we can start.
If anybody wants my message, you just have to go to YouTube, punch the button.
So we can start.
So I can start with questions.
Yes.
Okay. Questions? To try it.
My question is, at least I had your lecture that from Minsk, yes, and you were saying that actually it's necessary that some senior devotees that they would make that counseling. That was one statement, but often, for example, in Vilnius, at least in our situation, I will ask you just that we were making just recently maybe meeting with those senior devotees which were just maybe the first, but no, very old devotees, and actually all devotees they were surprised that all together they were assembled, and they themselves were surprised. It's just
That it even happened.
that it happened, because, for example, Prema Avatara, he said to me, Jita, I am astonished that you are trying to just collect a broken mirror all together, but they all together they collect it. And for them, at least as I know, that your statement that senior devotees they have to make some statements is very important, because they will not listen just if some devotee is maybe 5 years or 10 years in Krishna consciousness, because they will see, okay, some problems and something like this you will face in the future. What advice you can say to me today? Maybe you is okay, but I will not maybe listen you very so. Therefore, my question is maybe if that maybe it's that counselors it would be just, for example, some counselors for new devotees, and it according to his level. Some counselors for some devotees which have 20 years, something like this, in Krishna consciousness, and it's okay to them take advice from that person. And another counselors for those who are 30 years in Krishna consciousness. It's for sure that those counselors which are 30 years, as for example Aniruddha, Sanaka Kumara, he can give advice for every devotee. But that counselor which is, for example, 5 years in Krishna consciousness, 6 or something like this, how can he give advice to those who are 30 years? It's just my... Just I noticed that it is so, it's according to your lecture, but just how we should do. Is it okay, for example, that would be some gradations of those counselors. Just, for example, for beginners, for intermediate, for those who are very much senior. Is it okay, or just all?
Is what okay?
Is my question is, for example, with those counselors, is it just for some counselors, for some devotee, and he is counselor for everybody, or just for some? Your statement was that only senior devotees, but for example, if senior devotees, if they don't take that position, and there are only devotees who are planning...
Only senior devotees. Well, no, I think what I meant was is if you want, the more senior devotees you have, the more inclusion you will have of other people in the council system. In other words, you can't expect a new devotee to be counseling senior devotees.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
to try to impose that kind of it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So my point was that the more senior devotees you have in the system, the more people will be included and will want to take part. But I think I've also many times emphasized the point that the concept behind the counselor system is not that the system takes care of devotees, but it's people. And there is, I don't believe that in a system, so to speak, that takes care of devotees. I believe in people taking care of devotees, and the system is supposed to encourage people to take care of others. And because they're feeling taken care of in the association of other devotees. So it naturally works. The system what I'm trying to say is the system manifests kind of spontaneously and naturally, and it's not a forced system or structure that you have create and all of a sudden people are magically taken care of. It's an illusion. It's not the system that takes care of devotees. So it's learning the principles of caring for devotees that brings people together to work in a cooperative way to take care of others. That's what I call a counselor system. First, learning what does it mean to take care of devotees.
Wouldn't the word culture?
Huh?
Culture. Wouldn't it sound better? Culture rather than system.
That's fine. That's fine, but I thought, the system is sort of,
Sounds better.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's why I speak so strongly against it. It's not really a system. It's a culture of caring.
Culture has that point that you want to make, I think.
Devotee care culture. The culture of devotee care. It sounds fine to me. But yeah, I don't believe in creating like a parallel system. I just believe in devotees spontaneously and naturally, coming up with a kind of a collective effort to associate, and through that association develop ways to take care of other people. And that's, I would say, what, in my eyes, what the counselor system is. And I also, although the individuals who take part in this culture should be at least accredited or recognized as people who are loyal to the vertical authority structure. They may not necessarily be what am I going to say? They may not necessarily be within the vertical authority structure, but at least they're respectful to the vertical authority structure. And that's why when I speak about the consular system, I always speak about the culture of respect. I use that word culture in relationship to respect, because without respect for the authorities, and without the authorities' respect for those who want to care, and without respect for the people you're caring for, without respect, you have nothing. So I believe that a good foundation to start with a devotee care program is learning the culture of respect. That's a very good place to start. And these principles I'm very eager to teach. The culture of respect. So, because if you have a culture of respect, then you won't spend your time caring for people in the name of caring for people by criticizing the authorities, for instance. Right? That's some people like, I want to take care of somebody because we have a mutual grievance with the authority. And let's unite around our grievances against the authority and call that care. You know, for instance, that's not culture. So I believe, and then you have people who will be from all levels of Krishna consciousness, and hopefully my point was to try to include as many senior devotees as possible who may not necessarily be within the authority structure, but they respect the authorities. Respect. That much has to be there, to respect that this person has the burden of managing. And we should respect that. Because managing is not very easy in a voluntary movement, as many of you may have found. I can speak from 44 years of experience. Does that answer your question? It's okay. You want me to get more? What's lacking? What's lacking? Good. Maybe you can come in from a different angle, and help me to understand what's lacking with that answer.
No, that's fine, actually. No, actually, maybe that question was a little bit from another perspective, because one another point which now we are doing is just another website, yes. And I just saw
another website.
Website, yes. And I just saw another website from England, yes. And it was very wonderful website, very fine structure, and I very much like, because it's almost the same as we have here, but just another names, another meanings, something like this. And one point there was a mentorship program, yes, that everybody can be a mentor to another member, just in their society, church, something like this. And they are just proposing that if you want to have some mentor, then you just connect with such and such person, and he will give you some advice whom you can seek that mentor here in our society. But it is written just on the website that new person who comes, he just can have some thoughts about this whatever is happening. So therefore my question was similar, how we should present it here, the same information. Just for example,
I don't know
counseling.
I never saw the site.
Yes,
So-
but just some whatever it would be possible just to present to people how it works in our society. I understand.
Present to which people?
Website is meant for everybody, for every new person who comes here and he just wants to just to get some information what it is. Therefore, it was just one part, just to understand this how it is. And I heard your lectures which you have read, and I know that it's just important thing which should be done here. And therefore, my question was, if it is coming about that counseling system, then which is position of there are various devotees, and therefore maybe somebody can counsel new devotees, somebody intermediate, some advanced. You were speaking about that culture. That's okay, but I was just thinking from that another perspective, just how to it would be possible to present to another people, but it just.
I'm sorry I didn't follow it. I tried really hard.
By Lithuanian English.
No, I was just trying to figure out what is it you saw on that website that's so mystifying. I'm just missing something.
Lietuviškai pasakyti. Ne, čia buvo klausimas tik tai vienintelis mano, kad, nu, sakykime, kad, nu, eina kalba apie tą, nu, reiškia, patarėjus, nu, sakykime, taip, va, tą sistemą, ir kaip ją galima būtų pavaizduoti, nu, aiškiai žmonėms parodyti, kas kam gali patarti. Nes paprasčiausiai, mano, kadangi aš klausiau tas paskaitas, tai jos buvo susijusios su to, kad mokytojas sakė, kad gerai, kai, nu, vyresniai atsidavusi, jie daro patarimus, bet tuo pačiu yra ir jaunesniai atsidavusi, ir atitinkamai, nu, kai jaunesnis vyresniam nelabai.
Klausimą suformuluoti trumpai, keliais žodžiais.
Tai mokytojas jau papasakojo, mokytojas jau sakė apie tai, kad tai yra kultūra ir tai, nu, tiesiog jo, nu, kad tai yra tiesiog, tai jis
Tai
taip
klausimas išspręstas.
praktiškai.
Jis šitą klausimą.
Aktor.
Mes dar aptarinėsim, dar bus laiko.
Okay.
You have answered.
I did. Okay.
So, yeah, it's our philosophy. It's very obvious that Shantarasa, the respect,
Чуть-чуть
the main ingredient is respect.
можно, потому что
А,
нужно переводить, чтобы я
sorry,
слышал, что вы
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, it's our philosophy that Shantarasa, which is the basis of all other relationships that are to last, spiritual relationships, its main ingredient is respect. So if there is no respect, there is no lasting relationship whatsoever. That's essential. On the other hand, I've seen both expectations from managers that this, counseling culture, mentorship culture will act like in compress. Do you have in English? I'm not sure. If you have some trouble, say some painful, that it will act like a bomb, right?
Uh-huh.
To diminish the pain. While the actual situation might be that there is a disease in the body which produces that pain. And this disease has to be treated. Often it may be related, at least, to the management system. If something is mismanaged, some abuse is there, and there are objective reasons causing suffering.
Yeah, but when there's respect, then that could be communicated to the manager.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
If it's done respectfully.
Yes, that's what I mean.
And if the managers respect the people who have a message for them, then they'll sit and listen because they respect.
Yes. So it might be that those expectations that those counselors will act like a bomb, only like a painkiller, may not work in cases when some actual change in management, in the way things work, is needed. And that also can be expected, isn't it? That's what I mean, that both things can happen. Sometimes just painkiller is needed, sometimes an actual medicine is needed, some change in the way things are being done presently. And this also can be, the managers can expect that also to happen, that the counselors will come to them with their grievances if that grievances are founded.
Mm-hmm.
Is that,
Is that
can
what?
you comment on that?
Yeah, I can comment on that. That's how the system is supposed to work. The system is supposed to, that the councils are actually meant to represent to the management a voice that maybe many people have not been able to speak, to communicate to the managers. But the managers also have to be respected for sometimes for the decisions that they make. And because, as I said to somebody the other day, what was my quote? Quote me? If you want.
If you want to shock someone,
Yeah?
if you want to shock someone, take an action.
Oh yeah. If you want to shock somebody, make a decision. Right? That kind of culture exists right now. If you really, because somebody, I was meeting with the council in Moscow, regional council. You know, and they were saying, you know, that, you know, I can't remember exactly what they were saying. They were speaking about, you know, making decisions and people, you know, there's always somebody, you know. So I says, oh no, I remember was they made a decision that some people were against. I said, but if you want to shock people, make a decision.
It's what polarizes.
And when you're in management, you have to make a decision. So, otherwise, how can you manage if you don't make a decision? So sometimes the decisions don't properly represent the. Well, it depends. Sometimes they represent the line of authority properly, but they may not necessarily be applied in a way that deals with the problem.
Excuse me, Raj, by the way, you're referring to managers?
Yeah, managers. Yeah.
Иногда эти наставления принять решения,
So they should hear. They should hear, but at least the culture that I try to create is that when there's respect, then sometimes the best thing that you can do or expect is to be heard.
Feedback.
And if you're heard, that's sometimes even more than half the way of solving the problem, that at least you've been heard. And I believe that a good manager should be somebody who's willing to listen. Right. Because still he may have to make the same decision. But at least the people who respect the management and who he respects have the satisfaction that they were heard. And the biggest problem is when they're not heard. Because then that snowballs.
The lack of willingness to hear is a sign of disrespect, actually.
Well, it depends.
Well, sometimes
It really does depend.
consideration.
It really depends on the person who's speaking. Because if the person doesn't have any respect who's speaking, then sometimes it's hard to reciprocate.
That's also true. That's also true.
Especially if they've shown a culture of disrespect. If they've shown a culture of disrespect, then sometimes it's very hard to listen to somebody who's consistently showed a culture of disrespect. That's my experience.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you have to be pretty elevated to be able to sit with somebody who's consistently showed a culture of disrespect and then expect to solve their problems. So that's why I really feel respect is really an important foundation to build on for a successful counselor system. This is yours. Are you calling this? You should call on the people. You should call on the people. You all right? This is your meeting. You call it. You call on the people.
In your election in Minsk about councillors, you said that leaders should watch out devotees that devotees did not kill in other devotees sense of voluntary wish of devotional service. One voluntary spirit of devotional service.
Leaders should do what now? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Should be careful to not kill the voluntary spirit.
Leaders should care about that one devotees did not kill voluntary spirit in other devotees.
We talk about managers or counselors?
Leaders, counselors.
Counselor leaders. I'm not sure. Who are you talking about? Should be sometimes they're both in the same body.
So about counselors. About counselors, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and what to do in case if it's already happening, how to figure out this situation where
How to reverse it?
how to solve this.
The counselor is killing the voluntary
Not
spirit?
only counselors, but sometimes in community, this is just example. This is not reality, maybe, but this example. If what to do if this happening, that some senior maybe devotees. Tarkim, savo globa, padėjimu šiek tiek nužlugdo tą atsigavimo dvasią.
Some seniors devotees are just killing that spirit.
Yeah.
Overdoing with their care.
They're overdoing it.
Overcaring.
Overcaring or overkilling or whatever.
It's complicated.
And if it's already happening, how to solve this?
How to solve it? Train the counselors. If the counselors that are disrespecting the people they're counseling, then obviously they need some training. And you can't. That's not a counselor. A counselor is somebody that squeezes somebody till they just pop. That's not a counselor. Change, 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 change. I'm helping you change. That's not a counselor. It's a killer. But the person obviously doesn't know anything about counseling if they do that. Mm-hmm. Because the voluntary spirit should be that the person's coming to the person because they trust. All right? It's not like you just put in a system and say everybody trust. He's authorized. Trust him. You have to build trust. And my understanding of an effective counselor system is when people naturally gravitate into something they're already doing, and they've just been given the identity that they're already doing it because people trust them. Not that, okay, now I want you, to take care of people. And you just, authorize them and I'm empowered to take care of people.
Put on the website.
Put his name, put his picture on the website. Yes, he takes care of you. And he doesn't know anything about it, but he listens to you. It should be it's something that's natural, that the person is being recognized for something he's already doing. And then the natural relationship's already there, and then he's just being recognized for a person. But if he's not doing that, then don't empower him. Although he may want to empower himself or herself, whoever it may be. They may want to take that role. But what can you do? What can you do?
But the question was how to reverse the damage also.
How to reverse the damage? Well, I did say how to reverse. Pull him away and tell him. Find another service. That's how you reverse the damage. It's called damage control.
But about the people he has already overcared for,
Huh?
they have a burnt feeling about the people who have already been overcared for.
How to reverse the damage?
Those who got burned up.
Well,
Burned up.
the point is you don't have the same person reversing the damage. Somebody else reverses the damage. That's the point I tried to make. Yeah. Somebody else reverses the damage when somebody else, when the person who's been damaged finds somebody else they can trust.
And of course, probably one who is being overtreated should protest.
Should
Also,
protest?
Respectfully, but it's
Yeah.
not that he
Or
should-
protest? I don't know. It depends how the relationship evolved. If the relationship evolved without anybody else's involvement, then that person, has to take responsibility for themselves for entering into the relationship. But if they were told to accept somebody, then yes, then they have to go back to the person who told them to accept that person. Because sometimes relationships evolve very naturally, especially when you have a culture of care. The relationship develops very naturally. Really, go ahead. Oh, well, wait a minute. What? You're supposed to recognize hands.
Yes.
That's the.
It's the same point.
You wanted to continue on the same point? Is that what it was?
Point. But you can return to it.
Okay.
I can wait. But we have a system in Kaunas, like a situation in Kaunas where we recently senior devotees recently tried to introduce the system of counselors, well, like more in a more organized way. And I'm not a counselor yet, but I have a few friends which are being caught up in that system, and they shared with me the experiences that they are being treated unnaturally. They are being asked to choose a counselor, and they told me that from these counselors there is nobody whom I can trust. So my question would be, how can I help those people, like being like a neophyte devotee and not being a counselor, or should I talk to the senior devotees, or how can we help those people?
That's where to help the people is by speaking to the people who told them that they have to accept somebody they don't trust, and let them know that you've pushed people onto somebody you don't trust.
Because from my personal experience, I know that those senior devotees can be trusted, because she's my counselor, I know I can trust, and she's one of those counselors who are being submitted there, but those people just don't trust. So maybe they should change their attitude. Or
People who don't trust?
yeah, because from my experience, I really know that they are those people who you can trust.
Uh-huh.
They helped a lot of devotees. So
So how to deal with the people who don't trust?
I mean, what to do in this kind of situation, because I hear those sharings and I don't know what I
Well,
should do.
the best thing to do that you can do is just to share your experience with your people, with those people, of your experience of the people that you do trust and why you trust them, and try to open their eyes that maybe you're looking through a very jaded bias about somebody, and you should really try to open your eyes. You have a different experience, and explain your experience. That's something that you can do to try to help the situation, and which I know it's done. I know that's been done many times with certain devotees, and they've been able to come to realize that they had a predisposition towards somebody that was inaccurate. You just don't know the people. So that's what you can do to help the situation. And if still they say, "Oh, well, I don't trust," well, then I think the next step is you have to try to help somebody by warning them of what are the consequences if you live in a society of people that you don't trust. It's a reality. There are consequences. There are serious consequences if you live in a society of people you don't trust. How can you expect to grow in spiritual life if you live in a society? Because people usually like that, they usually come down to the really neophyte consciousness. Well, it's just me and Guru, and that's it. But Guru, his responsibility is to teach people Trinadapi Sunichina. If he doesn't teach that, that's the essence of advancement in spiritual life. If the Guru doesn't teach his disciples Trinadapi Sunichina, and to learn how to respect others and not expect respect for themselves, then they're going to have those gurus are going to have a time with those people. So you should tell them the consequences of living in a society where you don't trust anybody. And that's how you can help them also. Huh?
Can I add a few words based on what you just said about how to deal with people who have been assigned certain counselors, and how to deal with the desire to regulate this counseling system, because there are two opposites and two extremes. Number one is to have a free-flowing, natural development system or culture, and everyone is free to choose whoever he or she wishes. But then the managers have a valid concern that the system takes too long to gel or to develop. And on the other hand, the managers have that knee-jerk desire to instill it or impose on people some kind of framework or structure, so they know at least what to expect, but then it kills the voluntary spirit of surrender. And there was a discussion in Moscow about that, and one of the solutions which was offered and which was liked by the devotees was that the people who are senior devotees, they should start doing what you described as given. They should start caring for people without expecting them to necessarily accept them as counselors. They should try to care for them and discuss among themselves the successes or failures of their care for particular devotees. And if they come to realize that there is no chemistry between a particular devotee and him in the position of a carer, then they should among themselves reassign people. So everyone has someone who he is supposed to care for, and then see where it's going. It's not counselors, these are guardian angels, so to say. So they have somebody they are mandated or expected to be caring for. And then naturally it will come to a point when it will be reciprocal, and the junior devotee will see, oh, he's caring for me, maybe I should accept him as a counselor. So
Okay.
that was a suggestion.
You want to translate that?
I couldn't do it simultaneously, unfortunately.
I have complete faith in your abilities. I'm quite surprised you said you couldn't do it.
So you can't wait to progress.
I want to become double-faced model to do that.
No, you don't want to become two-faced. That's not very.
When we try to help people as counselors or like friends, senior friends, how much we can interfere into their life, because it's they are influenced by us, and it's a very big responsibility. And for example, we're talking only with that person, and we don't know if our decision is right or wrong, not sure, like that. So how to avoid these mistakes, and do we have right to give instructions, or we can just give like advices, and then the person chooses?
A counselor is somebody who really has to know what to take possession of when dealing with people. I'll explain that. Sometimes counselors tend to take ownership of something that doesn't really belong to them.
We have tendency to.
Huh?
It's tendency.
Yeah, we take ownership of somebody, of a decision, which really is not our position to take ownership of. A good counselor, is somebody who teaches the people how to make their own decisions. Not how to make this. If you have somebody always coming to you, always to make this decision for me, then you disempower them by making them their decisions. You should be empowering them how to make decisions, and how to make Krishna conscious decisions according to the principles that you've learned in Krishna consciousness, and share your realizations, and to show people both sides of their decisions. But to take a counselor doesn't mean that you take ownership of somebody's problem automatically because you're a counselor. You should know what problems belong to you and what problems don't belong to you. And that can only be learned through experience.
By killing somebody.
By killing the voluntary spirit. Yeah. There are oftentimes, unfortunately, people just want people to make decisions for them. And then they'll come back at you and blame you for the decision you made. Why did you tell me to do that? Right? Those are the worst people to make decisions for. To teach them how to make decisions.
And take responsibility.
Let them take responsibility. That's a good counselor. You really have to know what belongs to you and what belongs to them. You want to add something?
Just to quote you.
To quote me?
I think it's very much benefit because someone asked you about how to deal with people who become overly dependent on the counselor, and you answered the person by saying that the prime or the ultimate responsibility of a counselor is to teach their counselees how to be autonomously dependent on the association of devotees, to teach them the urgent need to be dependent on the association of devotees. And that's accomplished, then the counselor has done his job, because then his counselees will automatically search for the right association. That's what I think it was in discussion with Nityananda Swami. Just wanted to add because that's the topic.
Okay.
Можно время для перевода, напомню?
Нет, ничего, я потом переведу.
I know that the creator have line border where he can help or cannot sometimes what I found from your lectures that the main point is you mentioned on Shraddha. Everything should go around Shraddha. But sometimes for devotees to keep the Shraddha, they need other kind of help.
Mm-hmm.
Even some social problems.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say some people that helping to find job, they need money, marriage, many things. And it's also with some line where you can help or cannot, or just encourage. You just keep finding, looking for your partners. So it's connected with this. If they will be succeeded in this way, they will keep Shraddha, will keep company of devotees. Otherwise, they will not succeed.
I understand. I think I have an answer to your question. One of the virtues of this culture of care is that the more people who become a part of that culture and relationships begin to grow naturally, then when that culture begins to grow naturally, then you'll find that out of that natural growth will come many other, so to speak, committees, groups, who actually will be able to fill that vacuum you're talking about. It's just, they naturally grow. Like many temples where they've had this culture of care for a long time, when the natural growth is, they started what was called the Bhaktivedanta Fund. Okay? Different communities have it. It's a fund that everybody contributes to it, and a few senior devotees are responsible for dispersing it. And when there's an emergency in the community, they help. I mean, there was a devotee, for instance, in Kiev who got injured very seriously, right? And he didn't have any money, you know, and he didn't ask for help. The community had the fund, and the leaders immediately they went forward to help him. His faith, his Shraddha, he couldn't believe it, right? Couldn't believe it. And you know, for instance, I could even tell you, that when this war happened in Ukraine, okay, I didn't really do anything that much.
You did, I know.
I didn't really do that much.
We heard.
All I did was, I took a short interview, and that was it. And but the other devotees really got into it. And when some devotees saw the culture of care, devotees who had been alienated for so long, they said, "I can't believe it," and their Shraddha just, right? They care. But the management didn't really have to do much. It was volunteers who came forward. Because the culture of care is there, volunteers came forward to create something to help people. That kind of culture has to come first. Not that one person becomes the, who goes around and, okay, I'll take care of that for you. I'll find a wife for you. I'll pay your medical bills for you. It requires a culture of care, a community. That's what a community is. It grows because there's relationships, trusting relationships. Like oftentimes, for instance, devotees as they're getting older, they ask me, what should I do? I'm getting older, and I don't know, they think, who's going to take care of me? And I try to explain to them that a community takes care of their community. if you're part of a community, can't expect one person to come in and do it. But when you're part of a community, then the community takes care of its members. So there has to be a culture of care, community. And then they start naturally begin creating different... I saw that's how it happened in Chalkali, and I saw that's how it's happened in other places. Even the managers and the leaders, they didn't even think of these things. The devotees themselves came up with ideas. Hey, let's form a group to help the brahmacharis get on their feet when they leave the ashram, so they can transition from the ashram into grihastha life. Let's help them and give them money so they can get started and transition from brahmachari. They've been brahmacharis for 15 years. The householders came together and it just happens, because not all brahmacharis are going to stay brahmacharis for the rest of their lives. And many brahmacharis stay brahmacharis only because they're afraid. Of what? They don't stay brahmacharis because they're afraid what's going to happen to them in the future. But the householders come together as a community and say, let's take care of the brahmacharis. That came from the devotee care system.
I got confirmation what things the same, and just because from this lecture I found maybe I was misunderstood, but on the Shraddha, I also remember it's kind of sample of your actions when we really have some such cases like with Gangopada, as you held. This would be impossible for us, but you found it, did something, and this was really here with us now. Who knows what it would be if it's not.
Who's next?
Maharaj, do you think that for single ladies it should be a single lady counselor, as it is in London? For single ladies, care single lady, and for single men, care single man, or brahmachari, and for couples, for grihastas, there is a couple, an exemplary couple, who cares for couples.
Yes? Although sometimes a married woman can take care of single ladies, that's acceptable. But never the husband of the married woman taking care of the ladies. No, it should be. He can take care of. Yeah, there definitely should be some. There should be some boundaries that are natural, because we've seen too many problems that have arisen where caring people overextend themselves to the opposite sex, and all of a sudden you have a broken marriage.
You mentioned, if I remember correctly, in your class here that it will take some time to implement this cultural system here. And if I remember correctly, in your book or on devotee care, the qualification for the council is quite high, I would say. Maybe you can say the preliminary qualification for the counselor here in Lithuania for our level, as you see, but at least the minimum acceptable level. Who could be a counselor? Who could be acknowledged as being a counselor? For example, in Nagati sadhana practice. For our minimum.
I would say that to answer that question, the point that Manamohan brought up should actually be the principle from which you build on. Don't designate anybody. Let them do it naturally. And then when they've naturally done it in a way that's effective and created a culture of trust, then they could be designated. But it's not that it's just a free-for-all, obviously, you just don't throw it out to everybody and say, okay.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking, because unfortunately we do not have quite a big number of devotees who are exemplary in the sadhana and the lifestyle, and I'm a little bit afraid if, for example, we just leave, okay, anyone could be, who cares? There is the limit, or what to say, or at this moment we just don't care about this situation and just allow it to care.
I would say best not to try to control it, and then watch it, monitor it, and to see, you know, to look for the signs of trusting, caring relationships that have respect, a culture of respect. And if you see something else growing, then a culture of disrespect, for instance, then take the responsibility to, you know, to intercede, you know, or to intervene and to say that I've seen these or heard. Can you maybe we can discuss these, you know. But if you try to control it too much at this stage, especially the way at least that's my objective, as possible observation of the Lithuania Yatra. I would say that would be the best way to let it start, rather than try to control it. Over control could, yeah. Because what to speak of, you know, if somebody hears this recording and all of a sudden, oh, just see how I can. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard because it really does have to be built on a foundation of trust. And I would say a better platform to start it with would be if there was relationships with somebody outside, somebody not within the authority structure. All right, for instance, if I don't want to use this example because then everybody's going to say, okay, why don't you stay here? And I can't do it. But I was saying, for instance, if I stayed here for a few months, right? And then I developed relationships with the devotees who wanted to do it, and I would say, okay, I think you should do it, I think you should do it, I think you should do it. You know, I could kind of authorize people. And I tried to do that in some places through the local representatives. But it didn't work. It didn't work. Right. I tried to do it from a distance. I let the local representatives introduce people to me, and then I authorized them and things like that. Didn't work. Try to control it too much.
Вопрос в том, что с одной стороны Махарадж говорит, что кураторы должны быть почтительны к всем преданным, и в том числе к лидерам. Это понятно. Также Гуру Махарадж говорит, что если не хватает качеств, то кураторов нужно обучать. И это тоже понятно. Вопрос в следующем. Если кураторов обучают, а при этом как бы менеджеры или лидеры, они не ходят на это обучение, и в какой-то момент те, кто проходит это обучение, они начинают видеть, естественным образом, ошибки. Тех, кто не ходил, потому что их уже обучили, то что делать в этом случае? Не обучать или как быть?
So the question is about, on the one hand, you said that our counselors should teach us, or train us in the culture of respect. That's understandable. On the other hand, we also should make sure that the counselors themselves get trained. It's also understandable, fully rational. But what do we do in a situation when we do have training sessions for counselors, for leaders, but the leaders themselves fail to attend those sessions, whereas junior devotees do attend them, and they learn so much that they can start seeing mistakes or failures or shortcomings on the account of counseling skills in the leaders themselves who failed
Yeah.
to show up for the training sessions? Do we stop training altogether?
No, the leaders need to be convinced that they have to take part in
Нет, нужно просто
consultation.
убеждать лидеров в том, что они должны приходить на эти образовательные программы.
It's a defect in their service if they're not willing to
Если
do it.
они не участвуют в них, тогда это будет недостатком в их служении. Если они не согласны. How do we convince them?
How do you convince them? Who? Who convince them?
А кто? Yes, they need to be convinced, but by who?
By their conscience.
Их совесть должна убеждать.
This is to continue from Vaida's question, that sometimes this natural feedback, not necessarily protest, just the feedback that, it's too much or pain, doesn't happen because of overly stressing or giving too much importance or just being too afraid of, Vaishnava apparatus or being overly respectful.
Natural feedback to who?
Yeah, to someone who is, well, I don't exactly know what Vaidas meant.
Overcaring.
Yeah, overcaring, say.
Uh-huh.
Bending over. Sometimes this feedback doesn't happen not because the person is unwilling to hear, but the person who feels he is oppressed doesn't give us any sign of that because he thinks it's like Vaishnava Aparat, because he's senior. So even he would like to say something, give some negative, say, feedback. He doesn't do that just due to that, being overly respectful. Can you comment on that?
Can I comment on it? What should a
Yeah.
person do in that situation?
Yeah, about how do you happen to see this over artificial respect when etiquette is given priority over relationship, over actual relationship?
I see it all the time.
Mm.
But what's the
We
response?
are also seeing it all the time. Can you elaborate on that? It seems to be a real problem. Many devotees give priority to etiquette, formal etiquette, over actual relationship. And relationship suffers. Even if, even if the seniors, they may be best wishing, but they don't hear. Just because juniors don't speak out, being afraid. God knows of what.
But the point is that when the junior speaks out, if the junior has been properly trained and it's a proper culture, then the junior doesn't present it in a way that blames the senior, but blames himself for being unable to grasp the instruction or the care that's being given to them because of their own inabilities to surrender. That's what a culture of respect means. And then if you do that, if you have a proper way of communicating to the senior without laying all the blame on the senior, because factually, if we're really properly learning how to surrender in the Vaishnava culture, we really have to learn how to point the fingers to ourselves. And many people haven't learned that science yet. Because they're very quick to point the finger and blame somebody else. And that's why I said the culture, it's the duty of the spiritual master to create a culture of Trinada peace in each and in the hearts of all of their disciples, because that's a culture of learning how to accept a person to accept his own inadequacies and his inability to accept somebody's instructions because of his own, whether it may be prejudices against the person, because he's disrespect towards a person. So if that culture is created, then devotees can speak out without fear of offending. You can. You just can. You can speak out because the fault is me. It's not the fault. Is not. The problem is neophyte mentality is always to put the fault on the other person. But it can be done if people are properly trained. Fault is in me. I can't, I have my attachments, I have a mind that's always very critical, and I'm always looking for faults in everything you say to me and everything you do to me. And I think this is the cumulative effect of all of this is affecting my relationship, my ability to surrender to your instructions. That's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's saying the same thing, but it's taking responsibility. Rather than saying, you're too heavy with me. Why do you tell me that? Why? I don't have anything to do with you anymore. You can say the same thing with a culture of respect. And people respond because they respect. Problem is the culture of respect. That's how I see it.
So it looks like our time passed. So I would ask the last question.
Looks like time is over, therefore I'll ask
Time is
the
over. Otherwise,
The final one.
Tada praskūvot nori kažką paklausyti, tad nedrąsiai kelia ranką.
Time is over. Time is over. Yeah.
Time is over now, Chris.
Sankirtan.
So my question that I see that is big willingness to go deeper to this subject matters and to get experience and to do something in this field. And some practical tips maybe we can share. What we can as leaders, maybe invite some preachers.
You should be inviting some teachers. Come and organize some training. Yeah. Organize a 3-day retreat someplace and bring in some teachers who'll come and help train the devotees on this culture of care. I think that would be a very good start. Very good start.
Would you recommend it?
Who would I recommend? It's hard to say. I don't want to drop names because I don't want to put somebody in a position of, usually they're very busy people. Because they care, and therefore I think a lot of people. But I don't know, I would rather discuss that with a few individuals who would organize it, rather than openly drop names in such a large gathering. I wouldn't want to put the burden on the people who may not be available. Is that all right? Is it over?
Last.
I have a practical question. A practical question is about, especially about Baltic states, about Lithuania. Like, it's getting a common practice to get out of a country to get some work, because the economical situation is not very good in here, and it's getting difficult for devotees to maintain themselves, especially so many festivals, and you have to be in all of them. So my question is, what about those people who getting into the programs and training programs and leading programs, and how to deal with this situation, because it's kind of getting a gap, because half of a year person stay in one place and half a year stay in another place, in another country, there's a different kind of culture, you know, and devotional culture is different. So how this program is working in this kind of condition?
How are the people who are...
Because our yatra is not so big, and
Yeah, I want to make sure I understood your question. How can somebody take part in this culture of care
Yes.
if they're only here part-time? Is that
Yes.
what you're asking? Uh-huh. You shouldn't.
but there is not
You
there's
have
no devotees in
Huh?
here.
Unless you can do it in a very limited way and keep communications with people when you're not here. But I would do it in a very limited way.
Talking about counselors or counselees? Sorry.
I thought he was talking about counselors.
I think
Maybe I missed the question.
I'm talking about both of them, I think.
Both of them.
Because the situation is like this, that there's counselors also traveling to maintain their families.
Yeah. And okay. Well, that's why I would say the same thing. Should be a small. The counselor should limit himself to a small group of people with whom he can maintain communication when they're not here.
Is it possible to do that by, for example,
Yeah, it's
using a
done.
phone or
It's done. People do it through Skype or whatever it is. They have relationships with devotees who live at a distance. It's possible, and it is possible, but not with large numbers. I wouldn't recommend large numbers of people. Small numbers of people. I guess that's the best way I could answer that.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.